Hello and welcome to the latest episode of Let's Talk ABM with me, Declan Mulkeen, CMO of account-based marketing agency Strategic ABM. ABM is one of the hottest B2B strategies right now, helping companies to win, grow and retain their most important accounts. This podcast allows me to spend some time talking to account-based marketing leaders about their ABM programs and share their insights with other B2B marketers, wherever you are on your ABM journey. Okay, so today I'm joined by Nick Bennett, Director of Field Marketing at Logs. Nick, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
So Logs, tell us a little bit about the company and the problems that you're trying to solve for your customers.
Yeah, so we're a cloud observability platform for modern engineering teams. So basically our platform consists of 3 products, and we're actually this week launching new products, but the 3 that was kind of the core was log management, infrastructure monitoring, and cloud SIM. So they work together to basically unify the jobs of monitoring, troubleshooting, and security for engineering teams. And so we empower the engineers to deliver better software by kind of offering the world's most popular open source observability tools like Elk Stack, Grafana, and Jaeger in a single, easy to use, kind of powerful platform built for monitoring distributed cloud environments.
And how long have you been around for as a company?
So it's been, I forget the exact year, maybe like 2014, I believe. It hasn't been in a crazy amount of time.
And so how's the growth been achieved to date? What have you used in terms of strategies to date?
Yeah, honestly, it's interesting because we actually just announced a new series of funding last week. So another 23 million. So we've actually raised 74 million over the last 18 months, which is tremendous growth. And I think a lot of it kind of comes back to our core and what we do. And we're based in Tel Aviv, Israel, but we also have a Boston office. And we have a ton of customers that just kind of, our CEO is an engineer at heart. Same with our other co-founder. They're both engineers. So like they have a pretty big following in the community. And I think that's kind of a lot that has grown us. And it's interesting because, when I joined, I've only been here for about 2.5 months now, but we haven't had any real demand gen from like November of 2019 until probably June of this year, just because we had a CMO that left, some of the marketing members left, and then my boss was the VP of demand gen. She didn't start until May or June. So like there was a big gap of really not having anything on the demand side. However, our customer base still grew through the roof. And we do a lot through our free trial app. We convert a lot of our users from like the free app to a paid conversion. And that's honestly how we've grown, and then basically upsell from there.
Yeah. And we were talking earlier, actually, I saw a LinkedIn post that you published the other day where you were talking about launching an ABM program. And you mentioned, I think in the post, that you launched it within 2 months. I'd love to go into a little bit more detail about that and learn a little bit more about your approach, what you did. One thing that you mentioned actually in the post was that one of the reasons behind starting an ABM program where you were looking to prioritize where you were spending your time. So can you tell us a little bit more about the thinking behind the ABM program?
Yeah, absolutely. So, it's interesting. The industry that we sell to, developers and engineers, I've actually never marketed to this industry before. It's completely new to me. But the one thing that I found out very quickly within like the first week of being here is engineers and developers hate talking to marketing and salespeople. And so they would rather be fed the information, play around with it. And if it's something that they think provides value to them and their company, then that's how you convert it. And so ABM kind of came to mind as like, okay, if we can serve up a personal and optimized kind of, ads and just different programs that are meant for this type of ICP, we would see, usually like a 26% larger deal size, 32% faster average time to close. And to be honest, we have a pretty quick time to close where we can close most deals in 1 to 2 months on even like the bigger side of like, commercial side of our customer base. So that was the big thing for us. The other piece of it was our SDRs, they've always kind of prospected at the lead level. And so this whole undertaking was important because in order for ABM to be successful, you still do the lead level prospecting, but you also need to prospect at the account level. And so that was basically a brand new kind of thing for the team. And so we had to implement a ton of back end process around, Salesforce reporting. We use 6sense for our intent data, and we use Infla2 to serve up a lot of personalized ads as well. And so we had to configure a lot of the back end pieces to make sure that the distribution process was working properly, to make sure that we had everything in place. Because when I say there was nothing in place, there was literally nothing in place. And it's then also developing with sales their top account list. So that was another thing. Sales didn't have a target list. They basically went after anyone that was in their territory. And so, as you can imagine, that's, how do you prioritize around that? It's like, if anything comes in, if an SDR passes a lead that, might be an account, it's just one lead from an account that could have, hundreds or thousands of employees. You're not multi-threaded within the account. You don't have the ability to influence all the members of a buying team when you're working off of just one lead versus the actual account. So that was our whole thinking about it. And it came together pretty quick. Sales was on board. Our SDR team was on board. They're okay. We did a few small tests to make sure that they could actually prospect at the account level and how they would get those leads into those accounts within Salesforce. And so far, honestly, everything's been, moving. So it's still pretty early, but I feel confident.
So Nick, talk to us a little bit about the planning. Obviously, you've been running the ABM program now for 2 months approximately, but what kind of planning did you go through to get to where you are today?
Yes. So I think it was important to, one, get the SDR team on board with, account level prospecting. And on top of that, we're going through a lot of change with growth. So we're actually expanding our SDR team. So it's not only, working with the current SDRs, but we have new ones constantly coming on board too, that we then have to kind of like ramp up with everything. So the way that we're planning is we have kind of a few different tiers. And so we have a tier, we're basing this off tier 1, which is basically our sales defined long-term. We call them like BCOS, it's best chance of success target accounts. So this is renewed quarterly by the sales leadership team. And this is kind of like the sales target list that we said, okay, this is what we're going to go with for North America. This is what we're going to go with for EMEA. For Q4, and then we'll basically change it for Q1. Tier 2 for us is basically, we use 6sense. So 6sense accounts that are in the decision to purchase stage from intent. And so this gets up, like this changes daily. So it's either plus or minus 300 on North America, same for EMEA as well. And then we wanted to base it on segments that we felt would be important for us. And so we're kind of using these segments to facilitate customization and air cover for advertising. And so we kind of launched 3 segments to start. It was basically around ELK, logging competitors, and Kubernetes monitoring. And so we're focusing on the mid-market, which for us is under $1 billion in revenue. And we have all of these segments, and we kind of came together with our sales team where we felt like this was our best chance to win. And then within each of those segments, we basically went through a bunch of keywords that would be important to us under each of these things. When we get to like the small logging competitor piece of it, we basically put what are the keyword competitors in there because we wanted to make sure that we could win those. And that was something that sales was definitely on board with. And then we had the sales account list. And so we have the number of accounts under each of those basically segments. And so we're using those to kind of go through, and we have a very top down and bottom up strategy. So it's working kind of parallel with each other. So we have kind of for our persona of like IT/decision security makers, we have very targeted messaging that we've worked around and a specific CTA for them. And then we have a bunch of channels that we're pushing out for that list. And then for the developers and engineers, it's also very different messaging and a completely different CTA. And we're kind of working those together to push through the accounts that really matter. And it was a lot of meetings, a lot of planning, and it's just, I'm owning the ABM strategy, but I work with, our campaigns team, our online marketing team, the SDR team, sales team. So it's making sure everything is pulled together as best as possible. And we're always enhancing this. It's not perfect by any means. But I think we're at a good place where, within, doing this in 2 months is pretty good.
So Nick, my understanding is that you're running all three types of programs, one-to-one, one-to-few, and one-to-many. Can you just talk a little bit about how you see those programs as being different?
Yeah, so specifically for me, field marketing usually plays in the one-to-one and one-to-few, whereas like our campaigns and online or digital marketing team is doing the one-to-many. And so they're really providing the air cover, whereas I'm more focused on accelerating through the funnel, and pushing those opportunities further. And it's through a variety of different things. Maybe I'm doing VIP events specifically for them, or webinars or roundtables, or doing a wine tasting, something like that. It's really just kind of working to push it through, but also having that air cover that helps provide like the necessary pieces that keep things moving for us.
And obviously, you're 2 months in now. Looking back over the course of the last 8 weeks or so, what would you say are some of the greatest learnings that you've had being new to ABM?
Yeah, so I think one of the biggest things was that I've never, like, working with an SDR team that hasn't prospected at the account level was new to me, because I didn't know. I thought it was just an easy switch of like, okay, they do it at the lead level. Let's just switch it to the prospect, to the account level. And I didn't realize how much needed to go into the back end process of, within Salesforce for distribution. It was a lot of moving pieces that I needed like sales ops for. We have a BI team that had to help with a lot of that as well. And so the way that we ended up kind of coming to it was each SDR will have a personal accounts dashboard with a list of accounts and decision at purchase stage with scoring information for prioritization. And so being able to build all of that from scratch, when they've never done this before, was a lot of learning lessons. And so our SDR team, they're very used to just kind of throwing people into cadences. I've been working with them to do a lot of personalized outreach, because with ABM, you gotta be personal. If you're not personalizing, then that's, you're not going to really get anywhere. And at that point, what's the point of running an ABM program? So like I've been helping them build cadences within SalesLoft, and helping them just kind of with their personal outreach that helps tell a better story and kind of goes to the pain point of whatever that prospect has.
And would there be anything that you would have changed, having now gone through this kind of learning process? Anything you look back and think, you know what, I might have done this differently?
I would probably, it's tough. Like I think just being able to have a lot of pieces in place before we try. I think we tried to move too quick with the launch before having all of the pieces in place. And so like what I mean by that is we're still developing the dashboards for our SDR team right now, even knowing we've launched the actual ABM program about a week ago. We've launched specific advertising into our segments this past Monday, but we still don't have built dashboards for our SDR teams to work off of in our AE team. So it's a lot of like manual process right now. We're working on it. But I wish, if I was going to do this again, I would have everything built out beforehand, make sure that training was kind of well established beforehand, so that it was more of just check-in points, versus doing a lot of in-depth training when you're trying to launch everything all at once.
You mentioned obviously a lot of times, Nick, the importance of working with sales, getting that sales and marketing alignment. We know from our own experience of running ABM programs for our clients that unless you get that sales and marketing alignment right from the very, very beginning, you're going to have a lot of problems trying to get your ABM program off the ground and be successful. How did you find that with the sales team? What was their their input? What was their feedback when you talked them through the ABM program?
Yeah, so it's funny. I actually had a talk with my VP of sales, and he was saying, don't ever let me tell you how to do your job as a marketer, even knowing I'm the VP of sales. He's like, that's not my world. You know it better than I do. If you have recommendations or something that we should be doing, please come forward. He's like, I can give my input, but at the end of the day, you should know the world best. So you tell us what will help move the needle. And because we had such a big gap between when there was no demand gen even happening, the ground is pretty easy to beat at this point. Anything that we do is really better than anything that we did before. And it was easy to get their input and kind of buy-in. It was really creating the target accounts. And our VP of sales, his whole idea was he actually wanted to do more opportunity-based marketing. So whenever someone got to like a stage 3, for example, we did something specifically for them. So we're trying to mix in like the opportunity based, as well as like the target account list and the segments, and just trying to make everyone happy. But I think we're at a point now where they're starting to see the assets that we're creating from this, the programs that we're starting to run. And now they're just kind of waiting for all of the pipeline to come in that hopefully follows.
Good stuff. And did you have to get executive sign-off for this, or how did that work?
So actually, I didn't. I came to my boss, who's the VP of Demand Gen, and I basically wanted to pitch the idea. She was all for it. At the time, we actually didn't even have a CMO. So our CEO, he's all for it. And so we've actually talked, him and I, about how to use this now for our customer base, which is something that I've thought about it, but I haven't implemented anything. So for Q1, Q2 of next year, we want to be able to use it for churn and upsell, basically. And so that's a big thing for him, basically protecting the base, and just kind of upselling within the accounts, especially with COVID. Who knows if budgets are going to freeze again, or if there's going to be a bigger downturn or whatever. So that's a big piece for him. But he didn't have much input, or really anyone on the C-level didn't have much input. They were all for it because they know, Q4 is a huge quarter for us, as well as every other quarter, but they know the input or the magnitude that this could have on the company if done well. And so they're 100% on board with it.
And let's talk a little bit about the building blocks of an ABM program: ICP, account selection, value prop, intent data, messaging. With your ABM program, where did you perhaps invest most of your time, or the majority of your time?
I think it was a lot of the ICP side of it, and just being able to get the messaging down, because a lot of the messaging and content that we did have didn't speak to a lot of the pain points that we've been seeing. And we've always been a very bottom up kind of company, where we would get in with the developers and the engineers through a free trial. They would play around with it and convert, but you can't scale as quick as you want unless you're going after the mid-market and enterprise companies. And obviously those deals take a bit longer. They're more multi-threaded. There's bigger people in the buying decision. So it's being able to kind of get to them through different messaging. So we spent a lot of time on messaging. We've spent a lot of time on like what our ICP actually looks like. Yep. And then what are the segments that truly matter, where we think we can make a difference.
And you mentioned earlier there was a bit of a disconnect between the ICP and the account selection that you were seeing and what you were seeing from sales, right?
Right. Yeah. And I think it was something that took a while to get aligned on, because they wanted to kind of go one way, and we ultimately broke it down where we wanted 100 accounts. And so 50 in the US, 50 in EMEA. And then within those 50, we wanted to break it down where 25 were net new, where we need to basically get into those for Q4. And then 25 were currently in our pipeline that we were trying to progress.
Yeah. So just a couple of questions to finish off on, actually, Nick. Obviously, this has been an extraordinary year on so many levels. What thing has perhaps surprised you with your marketing that you didn't expect?
Yeah, I mean, I think the big thing for me in film marketing is events going away, in-person events. And so being able to get creative to figure out what you can do to stand out, because how do you thrive in a digital world when everyone's doing the same exact thing? I mean, we're all on Zooms and all these event platforms all day, but everyone is doing the same exact thing. And so whoever finds what that next virtual wine tasting is going to be successful. But ABM also becomes a huge aspect of it, because we're trying to run a lot of like the digital air cover through advertising. We're trying to do very targeted persona-based like messaging. We realize that that's truly the quickest way to measurable ROI. And it's tough, because even when, say a vaccine's coming out soon and next year, you get into next year, I don't think virtual events and virtual kind of platforms are ever going to go away. You're still going to have a hybrid model. I don't know what the percentage will be, but you're still going to have to be creative with your outreach. And I think ABM plays a huge piece of that in any program that field marketers do as well.
And you referred to that actually, when normality returns, so to speak. Is there anything that perhaps you always would have done before that now, looking forward into your budgeting for next year and beyond, you'll say to yourself, do you know what? I'm not going to spend so much money on that anymore because I've learned so much this year.
Yeah, I would say the trade show piece of it, honestly, it's been, you do these trade shows for these big companies, and it's like, it's a lot of money to be there. And I've realized when they've switched to a virtual model, they still charge a good amount, but you can do so much more around them without investing in, say, a virtual booth, for example, because the ROI from trade shows is already terrible. You throw in the virtual aspect of it, and they're even worse. And I can tell you from the results that we've seen, virtual booths within trade shows are useless. But if you mix in the ABM component with doing stuff around the specific trade show, maybe your speaking session where you don't have a specific landing page, but you could still target people to a landing page that you have on your own website, it actually will probably have a bigger impact and cost way less than sponsoring a booth.
Yeah, no, I think I definitely concur that we've seen very similar results here with the agency and with our clients around trade and trade events, etc. One more question, actually. You're incredibly active on LinkedIn. I follow you, I comment on your posts, I see everything that you're doing, and I think you were doing an absolutely fantastic job. What do you think the impact has been for yourself there, Nick, just for Nick Bennett? What do you think the impact's actually been?
Yeah, honestly, it's been, I can tell you 100%, it's opened doors for me that I wouldn't have had opened otherwise. It's helped me get this job that I'm at now. It's helped me launch a podcast. It's helped me be on other podcasts, help like contributing articles to other content publications. I'm now an advisor for an event platform that they've been following me on LinkedIn for a year. And so they came to me, and like all those pieces of it wouldn't have happened if I weren't active on there. But it's not easy. Like posting 5 days a week with different content and just trying to stay where it's valuable enough where people will follow you. It's definitely very difficult, but I'm glad that I got into it, and I hope that I can continue to do it and just, see where the road takes me.
Any tips then for those people? Because a lot of people struggle. They don't know what to write. They're not sure what to post about. Have you got any tips?
Yeah, honestly, consistency is key, and that's where people fall off. And even if, for me, I like to post about field marketing, personal stories, and sports. That's kind of like my niche. And like there's really no field marketers that post like valuable content other than like a work share that I've seen on LinkedIn. And so I'm just trying to get that piece out there. And if you can kind of find what your niche is and stick to it, then you can kind of develop a nice little audience for yourself that will really help. But then it will come back to consistency. And if you're not posting at least like 2 to 3 times a week, you just get buried in everything else, where it's just, you'll just kind of weed out over time.
Nick, great advice, and lovely talking to you today. Lovely learning more about logs and your ABM program. And I wish you every success for the future.
I appreciate it. Thank you for having me. It was great.
If you enjoyed this episode of Let's Talk ABM, be sure to subscribe so you're notified when a new episode is posted. Feel free to rate and review this podcast. Thanks so much for listening.